I want you to picture a scenario. You're sitting at your desk, it's late on a Thursday afternoon, and you are just staring down this project that should honestly take you 3 days to finish.
We have all been there.
Right. So you fire up this brand new enterprise-grade AI tool that your company literally just approved.
Mhm.
And you just feed it your notes, your past reports, your strategic frameworks.
And you just hope for the best.
Exactly. But in 20 seconds, it spits out a near-perfect deliverable. I mean, it feels like magic, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's intoxicating.
It's saving you hours of time. But I want you to consider what is actually happening beneath the surface of that transaction.
Right, because there's always a hidden cost.
There is. Every single time you use that tool, you are handing over the specific hard-won knowledge that makes you, or your company, uniquely valuable.
You're quietly training a system.
Yes, you are training a system that is eventually going to offer your distinct competitive advantage to the open market.
It is a really sobering reality to confront, honestly, because we are witnessing this dynamic unfold at a massive scale right now.
Across basically every industry.
Yeah, nearly every industry. The instinct for most people is to view AI purely as a software utility. Much like a word processor or a spreadsheet.
Just another tool in the belt.
Exactly. But that fundamental misunderstanding really masks the reality that you're participating in a massive wealth transfer of intellectual capital.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a highly influential document by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella today.
And it explores a concept he calls the reverse information paradox, which is just fascinating.
It really is. So our mission today is to analyze how businesses are inadvertently bleeding their proprietary intelligence just for the privilege of using AI.
Right. And critically, we're going to talk about what architectural and strategic moves you can actually make to secure that intelligence.
Because this isn't just some tech glitch.
No, not at all. This is a fundamental shift in business economics. We are moving from an era where companies fiercely protected their static data to an era where they are, well, frankly, completely failing to protect their dynamic reasoning.
And if you are a professional making decisions about how your organization deploys these tools, understanding the mechanics of this paradox is just non-negotiable right now.
So true. And the core premise here really revolves around this idea of paying twice.
Right. You pay the vendor a subscription fee, usually with money.
Yeah, standard software stuff. But the real cost, the second payment, is paid with your cognitive labor.
Which flips Kenneth Arrow's old information paradox right on its head.
It really does. And maybe we should look at the mechanics of Arrow's original paradox first, just to see why this flip is so dangerous.
Yeah, let's break that down. Arrow was a Nobel Prize-winning economist, right?
Yep, back in 1962, he pointed out this fatal flaw in trying to sell information as a commodity.
Okay.
So in a traditional market, let's say you're selling a piece of heavy machinery, the buyer takes the risk.
Like, you buy a tractor and you just hope it works as advertised.
Exactly. But when you sell information, the seller takes the risk.
Why is that?
Because the only way to convince a buyer that your secret formula is valuable is to actually show them the formula.
Oh, right. And the moment you show it to them?
They already have it.
Right. The transaction is instantly over. You've lost your leverage completely.
Exactly. They have no incentive to pay you once they've seen it.
So historically, we patched that economic vulnerability with intellectual property laws, right?
Yeah.
Like patents.
Yeah. Patents allow you to disclose the information safely. They protected the seller.
But now, Nadella is saying that in the era of foundation models, the entire risk model is inverted.
Yes. It is now the buyer who is taking on the existential risk.
Because when you procure an AI service, the baseline model you are renting is essentially a generalist.
Right. It knows how to speak English. It knows how to write Python. It knows, general business strategy.
But it doesn't know anything about your specific business.
Exactly. So to make the tool actually useful, the buyer has to contextualize it.
You have to feed it your trade secrets, your client histories, your proprietary logic trees.
So you are paying to use the software, but you're also giving away the very information that gives your firm its market edge.
It's essentially like hiring an incredibly expensive world-class consultant to come in and fix a problem at your company.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. And to get them to do their job, you basically have to open up the vault. You have to hand over all your internal strategies, your customer data, unreleased product roadmaps, everything.
Yeah, and let's take that consultant analogy a step further to see the true asymmetry here.
Okay, where does it go?
Well, this consultant doesn't just read your files and leave. They literally rewire their own neural pathways based on your company's culture and workflows.
Oh, wow.
And then at the end of the day, they duplicate their now upgraded brain and lease it out to your biggest competitors.
That is wild. So the seller of the AI model is compounding their intelligence based entirely on the alpha that you provided them.
While you, as the user, learn absolutely nothing about their underlying architecture in return.
Wow. Okay, so we really need to look at the actual mechanism of this transfer because, when executives talk about losing proprietary data, the conversation almost always defaults to cybersecurity.
Yeah, breaches, hacks, things like that.
Right.
Huh.
We picture a hacker finding a vulnerability and downloading a huge database of customer records.
Which is still a threat, but that's not what Nadell is talking about here.
Exactly. He points out that this loss of intelligence isn't happening through a grand breach. It is happening through a process called AI exhaust.
AI exhaust. It's a highly descriptive term.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, think about a car. When an engine burns fuel, it leaves behind a chemical trace, right?
Exhaust.
Yeah. So when a modern enterprise uses AI to accomplish complex knowledge work, it leaves behind a digital trace.
And what does that trace look like?
It consists of the intricate prompts your engineers write. It consists of the specific sequences in which your analysts string together different agent tools.
Oh, I see.
But most crucially, the highest value exhaust comes from the corrections your employees make when the model gets it wrong.
Let's really break down a correction because the document frames this as the absolute goldmine for model providers.
It really is the holy grail for them.
Okay, so let's say a senior software engineer at a major bank asks the AI to write a script to query a database.
A pretty standard task.
Right. And the AI writes a perfectly functional generic SQL query. But the engineer looks at it and says, no, this won't work for us.
Because of some internal quirk, right?
Exactly. The engineer says, you need to route this through our internal proprietary security wrapper, and then you have to format the output to match our specific legacy mainframes.
Which the model couldn't possibly have known beforehand.
Right, so the engineer tweaks the code to make it perfect. What just happened there?
In that exact moment, the engineer just digitized their institutional knowledge?
They just gave it away.
Yes. They took the unwritten, highly specific operational knowledge of their bank and handed it straight to the model.
That is wow.
Every time a human corrects a model's output to align with their company's specific standards, they are providing a high-fidelity preference data point.
And in the machine learning world, this is how models improve, right? Through reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Exactly. Trace by trace, correction by evil, the model is basically absorbing your company's DNA.
Nadella actually ties this back to Friedrich Hayek, right?
Right.
His concept of particular intelligence.
Yes, Hayek is super relevant here. He argued that the most valuable economic knowledge is not universal scientific knowledge.
It's not the general stuff.
No, it is the knowledge of time, place, and circumstance.
So the hyper-specific, localized context that only you or your company possesses.
Precisely. A trillion-parameter foundation model does not have Hayek's particular intelligence out of the box.
Right.
It only acquires it when your employees generously provide it through their daily exhaust.
Which leads to this massive irony in the current market dynamics, specifically around something called distillation.
Oh, the hypocrisy in the market right now is just stark.
Yeah. So model providers argue for these really expansive fair use interpretations, right? So they can scrape the public internet to train their massive foundation models.
They claim that absorbing the world's data is absolutely necessary for innovation.
However, once they build these massive models, they impose incredibly restrictive terms of service on their own enterprise customers.
They explicitly forbid customers from using the model's outputs to distill or train smaller competing models.
Let's define distill for a second so everyone has a clear picture.
Good idea.
Distillation is when you take a massive, expensive model, like a teacher model,
Mhm.
and you use its outputs to train a much smaller, cheaper, specialized student model that you can just run locally.
Precisely. Providers lock down your ability to distill their models, which effectively traps you in their ecosystem.
But wait, at the same time, they reserve the right to monitor your usage?
Yep, your telemetry, your exhaust, they use all of it to train their next generation models.
So the learning flows strictly in one direction. It flows from the customer up to the provider. Okay, I want to challenge this for a second from an enterprise IT perspective.
Sure, let's hear it.
Didn't we solve this structural vulnerability over the last 15 years during the whole migration to the cloud?
You'd think so, right?
I mean, companies use virtual private clouds. We have encryption at rest, encryption in transit.
Mm.
IT departments spend millions building these impenetrable firewalls. Why isn't a firewall enough to stop this exhaust from leaking out?
That is the exact trap so many executives fall into.
Really?
Yeah, because they are applying a cloud-era mental model to an AI-era problem.
How's it different?
Well, a firewall is a phenomenal tool for protecting static data. It's essentially a fence around a building.
Okay.
In the cloud era, the entire goal was to accumulate data and lock it safely in a database. But in the AI era, we are no longer just accumulating data, we are accumulating learning.
Meaning the value isn't just in the static files anymore, it's in the process of how we use the files.
Exactly. Intelligence is dynamic. It is this continuous loop of inference, feedback, and adaptation.
So if you put a massive firewall around your proprietary database,
But you route the actual processing of that data, the prompts, the reasoning, the corrections, through a third-party model that captures your telemetry.
then your firewall is completely irrelevant.
You successfully protected the raw ingredients, but you freely gave away the recipe.
Wow. So the trust boundary has to fundamentally evolve.
It absolutely has to.
This brings us to a quote from Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, which Nadella uses to really anchor this shift.
Yeah, Karp's perspective is crucial here.
Karp argues that tech customers now realize they need control over their compute, their models, their data stack, and crucially, their alpha.
Alpha, it's a term borrowed from finance, actually.
Right. In investing, alpha represents the excess return you generate above the market average. It's your unique edge.
And in enterprise architecture, your alpha is your institutional know-how. It is the literal means of production.
So companies are finally waking up to the fact that they are slowly transferring their means of production to their vendors every single time an employee hits submit on a prompt.
It's a slow drain of their most valuable asset.
So, okay, if the economic value is currently flowing toward the owners of the learning infrastructure and a firewall isn't enough, we need to talk about what actually works.
The big question.
Yeah. How does an everyday enterprise actually build this hard boundary and take back their alpha?
Well, the document lays out an enterprise playbook. It's 4 strategic pillars to distribute the learning infrastructure back to the firm itself.
All right, let's go through the 4 pillars.
They are control, capability, choice, and cost.
Let's start with pillar 1, control.
Control is fundamentally about defining what success looks like on your own terms. And to achieve that, an enterprise must build and own its own evils.
Evils, meaning evaluations. Let's dig into the mechanics of that. What does owning an evil actually look like for an engineering or operations team?
Think of an evil as a rigorous, automated testing framework for intelligence. Right now, if you use a generic model, you are relying entirely on the provider's definition of a good output.
But their definition of good is generalized for the mass market. It's not customized for me.
Exactly. So an enterprise needs to create its own golden data sets.
Golden data sets.
Yes, a proprietary collection of perfect responses, ideal code snippets, flawlessly formatted reports that represent the company's unique standards.
Got it.
You then run the model's outputs against your private evils to score its performance. Because if you don't control the evaluation metric, you cannot control the direction of the learning.
It's like setting the curriculum for a school. I mean, if you let someone else write the test, you have absolutely no say in what the students actually learn.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
And beyond evils, control also means ensuring your contracts explicitly grant you the right to use the outputs of the models you rent to fine-tune your own internal systems.
Which naturally leads to the question of where this fine-tuning actually happens, right?
Right. Which brings us to the second pillar, capability.
Yes. Once you own the definition of success, you need a highly secure environment to run those learning loops.
So enterprises must build proprietary learning environments strictly within their own tenant boundary.
Let's clarify the tenant boundary for a second.
Yeah, please.
In cloud architecture, a tenant boundary is essentially your cryptographic property line. It is the isolated instance of the cloud infrastructure dedicated exclusively to your organization.
It's your private digital real estate.
Exactly. So capability means bringing the training gym inside that property line.
You cannot send your raw exhaust out to a public API to be processed.
No, absolutely not. You need the internal infrastructure to capture the traces, the memory, and the feedback from your employees' daily workflows.
And then use that data to fine-tune models entirely in-house.
Right. So the messy trial and error process of human AI collaboration still happens, but the intelligence extracted from that process never leaves the building.
Okay, so you've established your private evaluations, you've built a secure environment within your tenant boundary, but you still need an actual model to do the reasoning.
Which introduces the third pillar, choice.
And this might actually be the most structurally disruptive concept in the entire document.
It really is. Choice is about breaking the monolith.
What do you mean by the monolith?
Well, right now, the path of least resistance for a company is just to buy an integrated, tightly coupled package from a single vendor. The user interface, the agent workflows, and the underlying massive model are all bundled together.
It's incredibly convenient to do it that way.
It is, but it creates massive friction if you ever need to pivot.
Right. If the vendor doubles their pricing, or if they suddenly change their privacy terms to start absorbing your exhaust, you are completely trapped.
Exactly. So to avoid that trap, Nadella emphasizes the absolute need to decouple the orchestration layer from any single foundational model.
Okay, the orchestration layer, that's essentially the middleware, right?
Yes. It is the software that receives the user's prompt, injects the necessary context from your databases, manages the memory of the conversation, and then routes the task to a model.
Okay, think of the orchestration layer as the conductor of a symphony.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So the conductor stands at the podium, holding the sheet music. In this case, the sheet music represents your proprietary prompts, your data integrations, your workflows.
Right, the stuff you own.
Exactly. The foundation model is simply the first chair violinist.
A highly skilled performer, yes, but ultimately replaceable.
Exactly. If the violinist demands too much money or suddenly starts playing off tempo, the symphony does not stop. Because you own the sheet music and the stage, you simply route the music to a different talented musician.
And that architectural decoupling is what gives an enterprise true leverage.
Nadella actually poses a pretty brutal stress test for business leaders regarding this.
Oh yeah, generalist test.
Yeah. If your primary generalist model is suddenly taken offline tomorrow, does your organization retain its capability to operate?
And for a lot of companies right now, if your prompts and workflows are hard-coded to a single provider's proprietary API, the answer is a hard no.
You don't have choice, and your alpha is entirely dependent on a third party.
But if you own the orchestration layer, you can swap models in the background without the end user ever noticing a single disruption.
Which unlocks the final pillar, cost. Because when you have the architecture to route tasks dynamically, you completely change the financial equation of AI deployment.
Cost optimization is really the immediate reward for building out choice.
Because in the AI economy, compute is measured in tokens, right?
Right. A token is roughly equivalent to a piece of a word, and you basically pay for every token the model processes and generates.
And enterprises have a finite budget for this compute, which the document calls their token capital.
And right now, most companies are incredibly inefficient with their token capital.
They really are. They are using these massive, multi-trillion parameter foundation models to perform trivial tasks.
It's insane.
It's the equivalent of hiring a team of PhDs with million-dollar salaries to sort the Daily Mail.
Such a waste of resources.
But when you decouple your architecture, you gain the ability to route tasks intelligently.
Yes. You can reserve the massive, highly expensive models for complex strategic planning, advanced coding, deep data analysis.
The heavy lifting.
Exactly. But for routine tasks like, say, summarizing an internal email thread or classifying a customer support ticket, the orchestration layer automatically routes the prompt to a small, highly specialized open-source model.
That you just host internally for fractions of a cent.
Exactly. You align the complexity of the task with the cost of the compute. You are optimizing your token capital precisely how you optimize your human capital.
So control over your evils, capability within your tenant boundary, choice through orchestration, and cost efficiency through intelligent routing.
The 4 pillars.
When you layer these 4 pillars together, they don't just act as defensive measures, they actually create an aggressive growth mechanism.
Nadella calls this final state the hill climbing machine.
The hill climbing machine.
Yeah. When all 4 pillars operate in tandem, you achieve compounding intelligence.
Compounding intelligence. So it works exactly like compound interest in a retirement account, but applied to your firm's cognitive capabilities.
Exactly. Consider the daily operational reality of a hill climbing machine. Let's say an employee uses an internal AI tool to draft a proposal.
Okay.
The model gets it about 80% right. The employee corrects the remaining 20%.
And because the company owns the orchestration layer and the tenant boundary,
That correction, that exhaust, is captured securely.
it doesn't leak out.
Right. It is immediately run against the company's private evils. And if it scores well, that preference data is used to fine-tune a smaller, localized model overnight.
Wow. So the next morning, when another employee attempts a similar task, the baseline capability of the system is just marginally higher.
Exactly. The knowledge didn't leak to a vendor. It stayed trapped inside the system, enriching your own infrastructure.
Day by day, trace by trace, your internal models become hyper-specialized experts in your specific business.
The system continuously climbs the hill of optimization, and you permanently secure your alpha.
Moving from a passive consumer of a generalized tool to an active owner of a proprietary learning loop really seems to be the defining challenge for modern enterprises right now.
It really is. If you fail to build this architecture, you aren't just renting software anymore. You are slowly liquidating your institutional knowledge to pay your vendor.
You are solving the reverse information paradox by ensuring that when you pay the subscription fee, you stop paying the cognitive fee.
Very well said.
Well, as we wrap up our analysis of Nadella's framework today, there is a macro-level implication here that I think we really need to consider.
Oh, what's that?
We have just outlined a survival manual for the individual enterprise, right? A blueprint for building an impenetrable fortress around corporate intelligence.
Right.
But let's imagine the logical endpoint of this strategy. What happens if every major corporation, hospital system, and research institution on Earth successfully builds their own isolated, impenetrable hill-climbing machine?
Oh, wow. It creates a fascinating contradiction at a global scale.
Because the rapid advancement of the massive foundation models we rely on today has been largely fueled by the collective, aggregated exhaust of millions of users worldwide.
Right. They learn from all of us.
Exactly. So if every single enterprise suddenly shuts off the tap, refusing to let a single trace of high-value particular intelligence cross their tenant boundary.
What happens to the generalized models?
Exactly. Do we inadvertently stall the global advancement of AI by hoarding our alpha? Will we end up in a world of highly specialized, incredibly smart corporate AI silos that completely refuse to learn from one another?
It is a profound tension between the necessity of collective technological progress and the absolute mandate of individual corporate survival.
It really is something to think about the next time you hit submit on a prompt and wonder exactly who is learning from whom. Keep your alpha close, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.